Now let's understand what is this .payment .ppk while creating this key pair with respect to this EC2. So whenever we launch an EC2 server in the AWS, the first thing that matters is the operating system. So how are we going to select this operating system? By using this AMI template. So with this AMI template, we're going to configure our operating system and coming with some pre-installed softwares, because the operating system decides how we're going to connect to this respective server. So based on this operating system, it is going to decide how we're going to connect to this respective server. There are mainly two types of servers that we're going to create. Whether it might be a Linux server or Windows servers. It means we're going to create the EC2, whether it might be Linux servers or Windows servers. Okay, the operating system might be Linux and its respect to distributions, and it might be a Windows operating system. So based on this, we use a different login methods. First, let's see this Linux server concept. If you are using a EC2 with this Linux based operating system, we will see how we are going to connect to this respective server. Linux servers are not like the Windows servers, because if you see the Windows servers, just like in your laptop, we are using the Windows operating system, right? We are in the Windows OS. It comes with both graphical user interface and command line interface. It means you can operate this operating system, you can interact with the operating system using the high reach graphical user interface and also with the command line interface, which is your command prompt or terminal. Fine. But if you see the Linux based operating systems, it comes with the CLI option, which is a command line interface. By default, it does not use as a graphical desktop like Windows. If it is a Windows, you can see all the buttons, all the graphics. If you want to create a folder, you just do right click and you can see something like new folder. You can create a folder. So everything will be very graphically represented. You can also interact with the Windows by typing the commands using your command prompt. In the same way, if you see the Linux by default is coming with the CLI option, but not with the GUI option. So what happens inside the Linux? So inside this every Linux server, which is coming with the CLI option, a service is running, which is known as SSHD. So inside your Linux server, when you create in the AWS, that when you create a EC2 with this Linux based operating system, a service is running inside this respective server. So that service is known as SSHD. So SSHD stands for, it is SSH daemon. So SSHD stands for SSH daemon. So it is a background service which is running inside your EC2. Let's say example, when you open your mobile phone, when you open your smartphone, there are few services which are running in the background. Or when you open your laptop, there are a few services which are running in the background automatically, right? There are a few services process which are running in the background. So in the same way, when you launch an EC2 instances, which is a Linux based operating system, a service is running in the background. So that background services is also known as daemon, and it is a SSH daemon. So that is why we are called as SSHD service or the process which is running in this Linux based operating system, and this service is running at the port number 22. If you don't know what in my port number and protocol, I recommend you kindly watch our DNS series which we uploaded earlier. So where we have clearly mentioned what in my protocol, port number and IP address. Fine. Now, so the service is running at the port number 22. So it means if this is me, I'm in front of my system, and if I would like to connect to this respective server or the internet, I need to use a protocol which is SH protocol and port number 22 in order to reach this respective service. It means from my laptop or the internet, if I want to talk to this respective service SSHD, I need to use this SH protocol with the port number 22. Right? Now, in this case, what are the login credentials? Let's see what are the login credentials that we're going to use. Now here, the next question comes into the picture. How do we log in into a Linux EC2 instances? So here, in Linux EC2 instances, when you create a EC2 instances with this Linux based operating system, by default, a user account is created. A user account is already created in your Linux operating system in this AWS cloud. Right? So that default user account is known as EC2 user. Along with this default user account, there is a one more user account is created, which is known as root user. So for example, if it is Amazon Linux, I told you it's a Linux based operating system. We have the many families of Linux. So one is Amazon Linux. If you are using the Amazon Linux operating system, the default user is a EC2 user. If it is a Ubuntu, which is a part of the Linux distros, if you don't know what is this, in the next session, in the upcoming session, I will decode the operating system and its respective families. If it is a Ubuntu, the default user is created is Ubuntu only. So it means if you are doing this respect to operating system, there is a default user account is created along with the root user. If you are doing the Ubuntu based operating system, which is a part of the Linux distros, which is a Linux flavor, so even this Ubuntu operating system having the default user account, which is known as Ubuntu. Fine. So we normally log in using this default user account, but not to the root user account. Similarly, if you log in into your laptop, we log in into a regular user account, but not to the administrative user account. Fine. So in the same way here also, whenever we are trying to log in using our system to this respective server, we'll log in into this default user account, which is already created by AWS. Fine. Now let's see how to log in and how to authenticate into this Linux server. So now here, in order to log into this respective Linux server, first thing you need to understand is every server having a unique address. So that address is known as an IP address. Fine. Now I need to send a login request over the internet using my system. I need to send a login request in order to log into this respective server. If it is a Linux operating system, as I told you, there is a service which is running in the background, which is known as SSHD service. So I am sending a login request to this respective service. If you want to talk to this service, it is running at the port number 22. And to talk to the port number 22, we need to use a protocol or the standards, which is known as SSH. SSH means secure shell. SSH stands for secure shell. So here it means I'm going to use a software in my laptop which is supporting this respective protocol and port number 22. So that software I'm called as client software. It means I need to use a client software to initiate a request over protocol SSH with the port number 22. Fine. Then here my request will go to the respective service. In order to reach this request to this respective service of this EC2, I need to also mention the IP address, just like your mobile number, which is unique to identify your mobile phone. In the same way, there's IP address in order to identify this respective servers. Even for your laptop, there's an IP address to identify your laptop address over the internet communication. So in order to send my request, login request to this respective EC2 instances, I need to use this IP address and I need to follow this respective port number and protocol. Fine. So then the request will go to this respective service. Now this service is asking the credentials from you. So here the credentials that which we're going to use is the user account name and the private keys. We need to provide the username which you're going to connect and with the private keys, because already the public key is located inside this EC2. If you observe, already the public key is loaded inside this EC2. So by default, if it is a Linux or Amazon Linux operating system, the default username is EC2 user. So we're going to log into this default user account, which is the EC2 user account. If you're in the Ubuntu, we're going to use the username as Ubuntu. And along with this, we're also uploading our private keys. So with this, it is helping us to log into our system successfully. Let me show you this, how it is going to work in the real time. One more thing here. What are the software that you're going to use? It depends on the key pair that which you're going to provide. Here, in my case, we are using a private key, which is in the .pem extension. As you know, private key is in the two types of extensions. One is in the .pem and one is in the .ppk. If you are using the private key, which is in the .pem, here the .pem means it is privacy enhanced mail. It stands for privacy enhanced mail. So it is a format where we have the private key or encrypted file, which is used to securely connect to your server over SSH protocol. Fine. It contains your private key. So here, if you're using the private key with this extension, so the client software that I'm going to use in my laptop, whether it may be your command prompt, if you're in the Windows based operating system, you can use your command prompt, or you can use your Mobaxterm, which is a third party software. I'm going to show you how to download this Mobaxterm and how to use this Mobaxterm in order to initiate a SSH request. Or else you can also use Termius. And there are the other softwares as well. So you can use any one of the software in order to initiate a request over SSH protocol, which is port number 22. Fine. So that request will go to this EC2 to this respective service which is running in the background. So in order to make this request to reach to this EC2, make sure you're also mentioning the IP address in this respective software along with the credentials. The credentials here we are using the username followed by private keys. Then the request will be initiated successfully. It will help you out to connect to this operating system and to interact with this operating system. Let's see using this command prompt and Mobaxterm in order to log in to this EC2 using this .pem private keys. Let me show you in practicals. Now, once you created this key pair, just try to launch these instances. So once again, if you observe, we provided these names and tags in order to identify or organize our resources. And we selected our software configuration under AMI, Amazon Mission Image. We selected this Amazon Linux 2023 as our operating system. Now here, what is the default user account? The default user account is EC2 user along with the root user account. Now what is the instance type? The hardware configuration, we selected the general purpose instances. because it is a T family which is representing this general purpose, so that we are getting a balanced CPU and RAM combination to support all type of workloads. The micro is the size where we are getting 2 CPU and 1 GB RAM, and followed by that we have created a new key pair with this name, and we have attached this key pair. So we are using this key pair in order to securely connect to our instances. So the public key is automatically uploaded inside this EC2, and the private key is inside my local laptop. Fine. Now don't worry about these network settings. Go with the default options for a timing, so that we may see this in the upcoming sessions. If you observe one thing here, there is something called a firewall or security group which is created, right? It is creating a new security group with this name launch wizard 1, and it is also providing this respective rule, right? So we're going to see what in my firewall, right? What in my security group or firewall, and how it is going to control the traffic of your EC2 instances by adding these rules. Okay, so if you observe here, it is added one rule, which rule allowing SSH traffic from anywhere. So this is a rule which is added to this respect to EC2 instances. Fine. So in detail, we'll try to discuss in the next session. So once it is clear to everyone, so this is storage which is attached to our EC2 instances. Currently, we have the 8 GB storage, which is also known as EBS volume. EBS stands for Elastic Block Storage. We'll try to cover this topic in the upcoming sessions. So go with the default options from the networking and the storage. Just launch this EC2 instances. So once you successfully launch this EC2 instances, if you scroll down, view all instances. Now this is the dashboard where we started creating the EC2 instances. Now here you can see there is the instances which is in the running state. There is a one server, one EC2 instance which we created, and it is in the running state. Right? So overall we have the one EC2 instances. Fine. Now go to these instances where you can find the instances that which you have created. Okay. Now if I want to connect to this respective server over the internet or using my laptop, if you observe, just click on it here, and there is an option called connect button. So click on the connect button, and here we have the respective options in order to connect to this server. Okay. Now, as I told you, we're going to use our SSH client software in our local machine. If I'm going to use this SSH client software in my local machine, I need to follow this respective steps in order to do SSH connection to this EC2 instances using this method. So let me open this SSH client software. As I told you, I'm going to use a key pair which is demo workshop keypair.pem. This is my key pair name, which is a .pem format. So in this case, I can use the client software which is command prompt, because I'm using the Windows as an operating system in my laptop. So using my laptop, I can use the command prompt or Mobaxterm. So let me show you how to use the command prompt in order to do SSH connection to this EC2 instances. So now once you open your command prompt from your laptop, this client software which is supporting the SSH protocol. So using this command prompt, we can initiate this SSH request by using the commands. By typing the commands in the command prompt, we're going to initiate a SSH request at port number 22. So that request will go to this respective EC2 instances where the service is running called SSHD. So in this case, we need to provide a command in this format. So SSH by indicating a private keys. So use your private key name, which in the .pem format, followed by user. By default, if it is Amazon Linux, the default user account which is already created is EC2 user. So provide this username, followed by public IP address. So this is the format, or this is the command which we're going to type inside our command prompt in your laptop. So it means if I decode this, so we are initiating this SSH protocol or port number 22. It means we are sending this SSH request to this EC2 instances. So that is where we have mentioned this public IP address. So we are initiating SSH request to this EC2 instances of this IP address, which is a public IP address, because we both are in the different network. If you are in the different network, if you would like to communicate with each other from my laptop to EC2, I need to use the public IP address. So that is where I'm using this SH initiating the request to this respect to IP address of the EC2. So my request will go to this respect to service which is running in the background. Now it is expecting the login credentials. So that is where I provided the default user account name, which is the EC2 user, and using my private keys, uploading my private keys. So with this, I'm initiating the SH request. So my request will go to this respect to service of this EC2, and it will check the private key whether it is matching with the public key. If both are authenticating with each other, then we can successfully log in into this respect to server, and we can start using this server. Fine. So that is what we're going to use. And one more important thing here, in order to send our request to this respect to EC2 instances, as I told you, a firewall will be available. A firewall or a security group is attached. So there is a firewall or security group is attached to this EC2 instances. Just like in your laptop, there is a Windows Defender. A firewall will be available for your Windows laptop, right, which is controlling the traffic, the incoming traffic into your laptop and the outgoing traffic from your laptop, right? In the same way, if you would like to send a request over the internet to this respect to service which is running at the port number 22 and protocol as such, in this firewall, in this security group, we need to clearly allow this respect to rule. We need to add this rule to allow request coming over SH or port number 22, right? So it means in the firewall or the security group, we need to add this respect to rule by allowing incoming request over port number 22 or protocol SH. But in the real time, we should not allow this incoming request from anywhere. By default, it is opening this request from anywhere, which is wrong process. We should allow this request only from my laptop address, only from your laptop IP address for security purpose. If you are allowing it from anywhere, it means the person over the internet, by default, if they have the private keys, even they can also successfully log in into this EC2 instances, because you are allowing every IP address, that every system you are allowing to initiate this request if they have these private keys. So which is not a safe method in the real time. So make sure you are having the security group, a firewall which is attached to the EC2 instances, and by default which is allowing this incoming traffic over protocol SSH or port number 22, not from anywhere, right? Only from your respective local IP address. Let's see how to do these things. So if you observe now, so go to the instances, right? Once the instance is created, you can see this is the tag which I have provided, demo web server. If you want to see more tags which we provided to it, under the tag sections, you can see they are the tags which we provided as a name, demo server, client as a LeoAxis, environment as a dev, right? So if you see a instance ID is a random instance ID is provided or attached to this EC2 instances. And if you see the state of the instances, which is in the running state, okay. And what is the type of the instances? It is in the T3 micro, fine. And where we created these EC2 instances, we created these EC2 instances in the Asia Pacific Mumbai region, which is also known as AP South 1. As I told you, this region contains 3 availability zones. Now currently if you see, it is created in the respective availability zone called A. So this is a region, AP South 1 is a region code, and A is the availability zone where we got this respective server from this respective availability zone. And if you go and see the tags, if you go to the detail section, here you can see instance summary. So this is the instance ID allocated by the AWS with this respect to EC2 instances, right? Now, if you see, there is also public IP address and private IP address. Now let's connect to this server using the SH client software from our local laptop. One more thing, as I told you, once you created this server, under the security, a firewall or security group is created, which is also known as firewall with this name. If you see this firewall, incoming rules or inbound rules, right? It is the incoming traffic to this respective server. It means if any system initiating a request to this respective EC2 instances, it is known as incoming traffic. It means the request is going into this server. So by default, it is allowing this respective traffic coming over the port number 22 or protocol from anywhere, right? Now let's see how to connect to this server with this format. So once you open your command prompt, As I told you, first initiate the request in this format SSH by using a private key. So what is the private key name? If you observe, the private key name of our EC2 instances is demo web server demo workshop keypair.pem, right? You can see here, if you not aware of our private key which we had used. So if you observe here, so this is the private key which is currently attached to this EC2 instances. This is the name of our private key. So what it is saying here, open an SSH client, right, and look at your private key file. Okay, and here this is the name of our private key. If you observe here, this is the same example which we're going to use. So we are initiating SSH protocol by indicating our private key name, right, our private key file. This is the name of the private key, and to this respective user account at the rate, followed by it is a public DNS. You can see history user is a default user account which you're going to connect at the rate, followed by it is a public DNS. I hope it is clear. Now let's see how to connect. So just mention your private key, demo workshop dot keypair dot pem. So this is a private key name that which we provided while creating our EC2 instances. So demo workshop keypair dot pem. So this is the name which we provided while creating this EC2 instances. Fine. So once you're okay with this, what is the next thing? We need to provide the default user account which you're going to connect. So the default user account which you're going to connect is EC2 user account at the rate, followed by public IP address. So how to get this public IP address? Go to your EC2 instances. Go to your EC2 instances. Under your server, if you select your server, there you can find under the details, there's a public IP address. Or else you can also select this public DNS. You can use any one of them. So I'm using this public IP address. So copy this public IP address and come to the command prompt. So in the command prompt, just paste this public IP address. That's it. So we are initiating a SSH request by indicating or by using this private key, and we are sending this request in order to connect to this respective server with this credentials. This is a username and this is a private keys. But whether it is going to work out? No, it is not going to work out, because let's do and try to see what is the error. So are you sure want to continue connecting? Just type yes. So here we got one error saying that we got the warning saying that identity file, this is the file which we represented as our private key, it is not accessible. There is no such file or directory because currently we are inside this location of our laptop. As I told you, I'm using the Windows laptop. I can connect this laptop, right, using the graphical user interface or command line interface. Now I open my command prompt, so it is representing or it is showing this location inside my laptop. But this private key is available inside my downloads folder, but not in this respective folder. So what I need to do? Change the directory. It means change folder. Directory means folder in the CLI terms. Change folder into downloads. It means open this download folder in this respective location of my laptop. So go to your downloads folder. Now once again try to rerun that respective command, because now it is able to read this file successfully that is there inside this downloads folder. Fine. Just rerun this command. See, successfully we are logged into our virtual server, our Amazon Linux EC2 instances. So we connect to our respective our default user account inside this Amazon EC2 instances. I hope it is clear to everyone.